So a couple days ago, I went out to a new bed and breakfast. So it's an older home that's being remodeled, 80 acres. And my role was to see how we can add certain features to the land that would increase property values, but also make this bed and breakfast a better destination. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Do you want to do things with your land, whether it's a business like a farm, a bed and breakfast, or an estate that really increases the property values, but increases the lifestyle and enjoyment on your property? Then pay close attention. How you manage land can increase its value, can increase the utility of that land, and also just skyrocket your enjoyment. So I go down to this guy's property, and we get on this little six-wheeler, and we're cruising around the property. And what he wants to do is add a lake to the property. Now, he says lake, but it's only 80 acres, so I'm thinking more of a pond. But ultimately, we've got to find a low-lying place in the land that has enough watershed that it's going to stay full, and that is in a part of the land design where we can easily dig it out and build a dam that's going to fit all the specifications. Now, what's important about this is that this isn't just, let's go dig a pond. See, you want to make sure in a holistic land management approach is that we're maximizing the value of the land. So we can put a nice big deep ornamental pond up next to the house, but if we want to have fish in it, it's got to be a certain depth. And there's the drain field for the septic is up there, so we have a conflict. We could put a pond downslope from the house and have a nice little pond down there, have fish in it, have a little gazebo, let some people fish in it. But now the septic drain field is above grade to the pond where people are going to be fishing, possibly swimming, possibly eating those fish. Now we got a problem there as well. As we got through the property, we found some old junk piles because this was an active farm. There was actual farm equipment in the woods rusting away, and there was trash in the woods and piles of burned garbage and bottles and such. We did find a really nice cast iron stove, but ultimately, you can't necessarily dig your pond there because all this junk. So what do? Well, a holistic model is going to say first, not let's dig a pond. It's going to say, what does this land need? See, there's all kinds of nice little things that we can do to make the land have higher utility value, to make the land more enjoyable for the owner. In the case of the bed and breakfast, to make it more enjoyable for guests. And we're over there thinking about a pond. I'm not sure if you understand, but a pond can cost $40,000 to $50,000 to build. That's after the engineering drawings, and depending on the size of your pond, that's after the involvement of the Army Corps of Engineers. It's entirely possible to get a permit to build a pond, and it take you 3 to 4 years to dig the damn thing. So I talked candidly with the client, and we looked at what can we do now with the land the way it is. Because this land didn't have a whole lot of problems. It's a curvy piece of land, but it didn't have any major erosion. The fields were previously used for goats, so it's really had low impact on it. And the grasses and stuff could be mowed with they had a bush hog, and they can mow most of the stuff with the bush hog. Besides the piles of trash, which is a problem, besides some old rundown buildings, there really wasn't a lot of stuff that was needed for this particular property. This property also had a really nice perimeter fence, but we did notice there were several points in the perimeter fence where somebody's cut through to go deer hunting, or there's a whole section of fence that there is a lot of new barbed wire and a lot of materials that somebody had cut out and thrown in a ditch. So there was a little bit of a hazard. But here's my point. Let's say you have a piece of land, you have this big dream that you want to realize on the piece of land, and there's a couple features that are really important. Don't focus on those individual features. Do this instead. Let's say you have a farm project that's starting to get more expensive, and it's getting difficult to get staff out there. And now the overall land is starting to underperform. Well, do we change everything or do we do something else? Maybe you have a project that's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just seems like it's never going to get done. I hear this from a lot of folks that build these homesteads. They go buy a piece of land. They're going to build their own off-grid cabin, and 8 years later, they're still not done. Okay? What's the one thing that can get you past every one of these scenarios? Well, it's going to be your design plan. So I want you to approach your holistic land management with a proven approach. And in order to do that, you bring in a consultant, you go get the books, you go look at the topographicals of the land, you look at its previous use, and you have a proven approach. Then you have others do the majority of the work. Now, why do I tell you this? Well, you might think I'm telling you this because I'm a consultant and I can help you with steps 1 and 2, which is, use a proven approach. Yes, I can help you with that. Number 2 is hire somebody to help you. I can help you with that. But guess what? I'm busy, may not be available. But if you try to do it yourself, if you go in there to dig a pond without engaging an engineer, without getting land surveys, without considering other aspects, you could create a bigger problem than you started with. So you want to get the right people out there. Now, looking at this gentleman's piece of land, his easy wins are going to be finger ponds, because water features are important for a bed and breakfast, especially one that's going to have a venue for weddings, because you want to have those photographic sites, people can stand there by the pond and it's all peaceful and they get their pictures taken. They want to have little ornamental gardens and things like that. They want to have a deck that has a scenic overview of the mountains behind it. Those things are actually more important than digging a $50,000 or $100,000 pond. And sometimes they're less expensive to do. So one thing I noticed about his property is that the access was awkward. So he's got 80 acres. He's telling me there's some four-wheeler trails back there somewhere. And he's got trees in front of areas for access. So we're driving around these giant piles of junk. And then we're driving down next to a fence line. My first approach is, look, first, let's get some decent access points in here. First, let's map the perimeter, clear off the fence line. One thing I did notice about this fence is that it was built with kind of an 8-foot level on both sides of it. So no matter where that fence went, except when it went across the creek, it actually had enough room alongside of it to ride a four-wheeler. So I said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to clear the fence line. You're going to go find every inch of this fence, and you're going to get the trees off of it, turn all that stuff into firewood. You're going to get about 8 feet on either side of the fence cleared out, and that way you can now drive your four-wheeler around to find those roads. Now, once you find those roads, you either get out a forest mulcher, or you get out and cut more firewood, and then you bush hog those roads. So what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with trails, grass covered. I noticed most of the grass covered over the open trails. You're going to end up with grass covered trails over the majority of your property. And now that's a feature. People can come stay at the bed and breakfast, and they can enjoy the creek, and they can walk down through the trails and get some exercise. And you didn't have to spend a penny on that other than just cutting firewood. See, but we can't stop there, though. Step number 3 is to get a written plan, is to put together a written plan. See, because that's just one of the options. Clean up the fence line, open up the trails. That's just one option. Another option we talked about is some of the roads really needed some work. And while you had an excavator out there doing the work, go ahead and dig some finger ponds or some swales and some mounds and start getting a couple little water collection points. And just kind of let's slow that water down and spread it out. During the wet season, many of these swales will have moisture in them, so you can't really walk in them or use them for access. But during the dry season, it gives you an expanded space to work with. Another reason I mentioned this is because we want to get the water off of the area where people are going to be, because there was going to be a gazebo on the hill. So I wanted that area leveled out, and then I wanted a little dip on the outside to keep the water controlled. And then you can landscape it. See, we went through a number of scenarios, but none of those matter unless he puts them in his written plan, because from his written plan, he can now take a phased approach. So you still can get the pond. But before he gets to the pond, he's got a cleared fence line. that has access around the whole property. He's got trails around the property because one of the things he wanted to offer his clients is horseback riding or four-wheeling on the property. Well, you got trails now. You can do both of those. Another thing, he wants wedding venues and scenic places for photographs. Well, what would you rather have? A $5,000 landscape trail that goes around the big venue area for the outdoor wedding ceremonies, and the back end of the hospitality for the food, or do you want to have a $50,000-$60,000 pond? And see, so now the trail design gives him greater utility. Now, I've just given you 4 steps. Start with a proven approach. I'm literally cookie cuttering concepts and ideas on this guy's property, like swales. It's just the access points, the basics, but we put them in application. Next, you want to get somebody else to do the work. You're going to manage the work rather than doing the work. And the reason you do that is because when you have a written plan and then you break it down into small phases, you could have a contractor out to do that land, to do those roads, do that fence clearing. They could go clear the fence and repair the fence at the same time. There was talk about animals on the property eventually. You can have somebody do your roads and build out these ornamental areas and bring in additional dirt so you can get these nice mounds that you can put flowers on, almost to give you a backdrop for wedding pictures. See, I see it in my mind that we're going to treat it like an estate. We're going to assume we're throwing parties, we're having friends over, that we're doing something with the property rather than just mowing the grass and maintaining the property. Like we're maintaining it, we're cultivating it, we're helping the land express itself, we're having healthy trees, maybe a little orchard, maybe a garden. So one of the things he wanted to do was have a little garden area so they can use fresh vegetables in the foods that might be at the house. He wants definitely sitting areas and pleasant little outdoor areas and some outdoor living space. That's treating it like an estate. If you make sure it first can serve your needs and desires, that's fine. Because if that's as far as you go, you're ahead of the game. But let's go beyond that and look at ways that the property can cash flow. So in the bed and breakfast scenario, just having a wedding venue, an outdoor wedding venue, he can go get a tent, put everybody under there. He owns a restaurant. He can cater the event. He can have little photo opportunities that are essentially really nice landscaping, a couple trees, and he can have the trails around the main house or access points around the main house, and he can start. It's no big deal if he spent $5,000 for landscaping because he can get a few clients through a few events through, and he'll recover that right away. See, if you're just starting a farm or if you're just starting an estate and you've got 15, 20 different projects going on, even 5 projects going on, it's really quick going to become a money pit. But if you put together an actual plan for the property and you budget it in, almost treat it like a business, treat it like a palatial estate, you can start seeing, hey, look, the pond would be great, but why don't we do a small water feature up next to the house and set it up as a backdrop for for photographs? Now, he had suggested even setting up a little gazebo on the back of the water feature so that if he had a wedding over there, there'd be like this little water feature in front of the people getting married and then on the back. So it's almost like they're getting married on a gazebo that's over top the flowing water, have ornamental items in the front, and then a flat area in front of that where he could have the seating for the audience. Get it on paper. Start budgeting it out. Hire somebody to do parts of it. You become the general contractor. Folks, I hope this has made sense to you. A lot of folks are just getting a house and living in it and doing a lot of yard work. I want to help you move towards getting more from your land. We do talk about living in smaller homes too. You don't have to have a big estate with a giant house and 15 bedrooms. You could have a simple 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but outside you've got a pavilion where you have family reunions, or you have outdoor play space for the kids, Doesn't really matter what kind of projects. If you're using a holistic land management approach, you're going to fix the problems on the land first. You're going to care for the land first. And as you're doing that, you're going to start plugging in these projects. And before you know it, your home will be the dream home that other people have always wanted and you definitely enjoy. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. If you have any questions about what I've shared today, if something doesn't make sense or you're not sure how to apply it to your land, visit our website at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page, raise your hand and contact me. I'm probably not going to, if you comment on social media or you comment below this, I may not see it unless it's on one of my main channels. I do want to hear your questions. I do want to hear about the challenges you face, because the better you can manage your land, increase those property values, increase the cash flow from your property, the more likely you're going to be able to keep that land. And one of the things that I do here is help small farms, homesteads, and estates create generational places, increase that utility value, increase that enjoyment, make the household run smoother. And with all of that, you get a holistic approach so that you get a complete solution. Thanks for listening. Again, I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead.